Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Fritz.
I'm Damon Lewis.
Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be doing a book review. And today's book that we'll be doing or covering is going to be Adventures Beyond the Body, How to Experience Out-of-Body Travel. And this is by William Buhlman. It's pretty well known in the, I guess, spiritual community in regards to out-of-body exploration. And I believe I don't know if he's still currently teaching, or at least he has in the past. I think he's still teaching there at the Monroe Institute. So let me see if I can just put the book up here just so you can kind of see it. And he's got other books as well, but this is the only one I've read so far. And I'd have to say this is probably my second favorite book. My favorite book, my favorite spiritual book so far I've read is "You're the Answer" by Michael Tamara. That one's not so much about out of body experiences or lucid dreaming, but this is probably my second favorite spiritual book in general. This is pretty awesome. I mean, it's just like um, it's interesting. I don't know. Maybe you've noticed this too, probably Damon. Like the first, I don't know, was it maybe like first 100 pages or something like that? First big chunk of the book is just like uh, diary, or just is like his journal of just all these different logs of experiences, out of body experiences. And I found that to be exciting. Like I wish the whole book could have been that. I could have just read more and more experiences. And then the energy of the book kind of shifted. It kind of got more I guess more scientific. It got more talking about physics and things like that. But overall, this is a pretty cool book to read, so I highly recommend it. But what are your just initial thoughts about it, Damon?
Well, at first I was a little skeptical.
Mm,
I've seen a bunch of interviews from William Buhlman,
mm,
and he gives that sort of general knowledge of astral projection and what it is, out of body experience. I think he's trying to be as scientific and you know plain speaking to anybody who doesn't know what it is when he's doing those kind of things.
mm,
But uh, I wouldn't say this is my favorite book, but I would recommend it to everybody. I think this is probably top five, something that everybody should have in their book collection for astral projection. And one of the reasons I was a little skeptical is because I've read so many other books.
mm,
I've read there's so many other books about astral projection, and the reason I would say that this one wasn't my favorite, it's just not the style I like. I liked astrodynamics the most,
mm.
but the reason I would recommend it for everybody, go out and buy it, is because it has something for everybody. Just
Yeah.
like you were kind of mentioning there, it has like the diary, like his journal, and then it has
Yeah.
a little more scientific stuff.
Mm,
But the number one thing that was helpful for me is he was talking about all these, a bunch of different techniques. And when he talked about how he started with using his imagination
yeah.
and visualization, right now, that's all I use
Mhm.
because it just connected with like, wait a minute, I'm good with visualization. That's my strong suit.
Mhm.
So I'm glad I picked it up. And like, you're the one that kind of pushed me to read it again so we could do this, this book review.
Yeah.
And I'm super glad I did. I have an audiobook. I'm gonna listen to it like at least once a month. Keep going with it because it
Mhm.
has a lot of little pieces of information.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um, I think the thing that stood out to me the most, and again, I enjoyed the first half of the book probably the most, but you remember back when he was talking about, um, I think he got out of body, and it's just been a while since I've read this, but he got out of body, and then I don't know if his intention was to explore a past life, or it just kind of ended up that way, just kind of came about. But that World War II past life that he had as the German soldier, and like he was experiencing it as if it was like happening, like he could feel the emotions and like the thoughts of him um, in that particular body in that past life in World War II. I don't know if they're in some town. And there was a bunch of tanks around and destruction, and I was like, wow, that was pretty interesting. Because I've never had an experience like that. But to me, I've always been in clairvoyant meditation and being able to see past lives, um, doing past life readings for other people, and just taking a look at my own and just seeing images. and you can get a lot of information from images, and that can be pretty profound. But I was like, oh my god, like actually like re-experiencing it in that kind of way, I thought that was pretty intense. I guess maybe it depends on, because initially I was like, I immediately would want to do something like that. um but I guess maybe it also depends on what kind of what kind of past life experience it was, depending on what you're going to be re-experiencing in a kind of a strange way. But that stood out to me.
Yeah, Joe Dispenza actually talks about one of his experiences with a past life, and it was really painful. I'm not going to go into it; it's kind of graphic, but
Oh, okay.
I think that's one of the things that could be a fear that people have when they're looking into astral projection, maybe a blockage of fear that a lot of us have pain avoidance. That's
Oh yeah.
like, we all have that. We all have like this pain avoidance. We want to feel good all the time, but you and I did, like, when I was working with you doing the grounding technique and doing clairvoyance exercises, we went through some of my past lives, and some of it's some painful stuff. Like, you get to see some ugly sides of who you were, and it really is an eye opener as to what's going on. We all have this like dark side, the shadow parts, or whatever you want to call it. But if you work through it and you look, straight at it, and don't go for that pain avoidance, you can work through these things. You can kind of integrate your shadow
Right.
self and your light self.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think just with spirituality in general, like kind of going on a healing or self-discovery journey, you're going to, especially if you're disconnected or lost, confused, which is exactly what I kind of where I started, at the beginning for myself. um, Making that conscious choice of, okay, I'm going to start going within. And when you start going within, initially it might not be so pleasant or comfortable, and it would be easy to just say, okay, maybe not. I'll avoid that at all costs. I don't want to, have to go through and dig through maybe certain past pain, or just grief or guilt or whatever it is that we've kind of buried and avoided and are resisting. And but yeah, like you said, if you can work through that, if you allow yourself to just work through that kind of, allow yourself in that uncomfortable space and push through it, there is a shift in energy, and you'll start to find yourself underneath all of that. And I think that's really rewarding, and that can happen. You can go deeper and deeper, down this rabbit hole, and just learn more and heal more. But um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When I was younger, and before I started researching this stuff, I think I talked about this when I talked about my first experiences, and also when I talked about maybe in the ghost stories episode.
Mhm.
uh, I had a lot of experiences like that, but they would all happen to me. And I drank a lot. I drank too much alcohol, and that was sort of me doing my pain avoidance. But
Mhm.
when I would, reconcile with that, stopped drinking so much, and really started to research, talk to other people, and dig into these experiences, a huge shift happened. Less, no sleep paralysis anymore. That stopped happening.
Mhm.
No more nightmares in that way. Like, uh, if I have nightmares now, they're very, like, I had a nightmare the other night. It's easily worked through. Maybe I'll have a lucid dream and stop the nightmare.
Mhm.
And definitely not a lot of things happening to me. No more of those ghost stories where it's like a lower ghost story experience. It's more of experiences of angels or guides. I had a lucid dream the other night with a guide helping me. So it's a
Mhm.
complete shift from darkness in lower situations to light and higher vibrations and higher situations. So yeah, uh, definitely, I think William Buhlman mentions enough things that, like you're talking about with his past life stuff, that can get people on that road.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember being in one of my trainings, and it was like a training on kind of getting your face with death. And um, I was talking to my teacher, and we were talking about looking at past lives, and the topic of, like, have you ever looked at your most recent past life? And I was like, no. He's like, you've been here this entire time, and you've never looked at your most recent past life. I was like, no. And I just had all this immediate resistance because I knew on some level, even not knowing what it was about or what it looked like and all that, how it played out. I just knew I didn't really want to look at it. I was avoiding that one big time. So when I started to look at it, mine was also a World War II past life. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing of it, but basically just seeing myself, get shot dead. I was like, whoa, like that was, you just have that, you just see it and you just have this moment. You're just like, whoa, okay, this is weird. Seeing that and then just processing and kind of working through that. But for me, it was interesting looking at that past life because it just connected so many dots from how it's influencing or affecting this lifetime. Things that were unresolved then, how they're kind of playing out, in my early life, this lifetime, and all that. It clicked and made a lot of sense. But yeah, sometimes you just gotta jump the hurdle of that resistance, and yeah, I mean, it takes courage. It takes having some sense of or a little bit of amusement along the way. This is
Yeah.
challenging, but it's helpful. Um, Another thing that stood out for me, I think there was one experience he mentioned. Um, it's interesting. I think a lot of other out of body explorers talk about telepathy out of the body and just like hearing, another being's like thought that just pops in their head, just having that form of communication. And a lot of his seemed more clairvoyant. It seemed more like he got an image or something, and that's how he was receiving communication with other people. Um, I think what I found was really interesting was it might have happened in his first out of body experience or initially where um, he saw someone off in the distance, and I think it kind of maybe kind of scared him a little bit, and then he got comfortable enough at some point and finally met this particular being, and it ended up being a spirit guide. And I thought that was really cool. It's just like, wow, okay, how you can have the initial fear of like, whoa, wait a second, there's this other being, if you will, kind of off in the distance, and we have this kind of like, whoa, wait a second, what's this? I don't know. And it turns out to be a spirit guide that's trying to want to help him essentially. um but yeah, that stood out. I thought that was interesting. I think there's one where he met his uncle. Do you remember that? Where
Yep.
he didn't
Yeah.
recognize the uncle, and because the uncle appeared like maybe in his 20s, and he just didn't have, William Buhlman didn't have that. He was expecting to see kind of maybe how his uncle was towards the end of life, perhaps, and that was a thing there. But yeah, a lot of clairvoyant imagery, kind of communication. But another one I thought was pretty cool. I think there was one of his experiences where he was out of body and he just saw just many images all out in front of him, and I think these were like different past lives. Um, so it was a different experience of not that maybe first person type experience, maybe like the World War II one he was kind of going through. This one was just a bunch of pictures out in front of him of just different past lives and just having all this information just available in front of him. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool to read. So um, yeah, this one was exciting. This reading this type of stuff is like if I ever get in ruts with dreams and out of body stuff, like and it naturally happens. It's never this like perfect thing, perfect, straight away, so to speak. There's always these kind of dips for me where, okay, sometimes my dream recall is low or sometimes it's higher. Um, and so just reading this kind of, it gets me enthusiastic about, diving deeper, kind of going more into it. But is there any other things that stood out for you or you found more helpful to learn about or read?
Yeah, there was one place besides the visualization that was yeah, Lewis talked about that. Lewis Monero talked about how visualization was good, for most people.
Mm-hmm.
That stood out. But when when he met that little girl, um, and he was trying to stop the rain. He actually stopped the rain. Um, that stood out to me very much because she seemed as though she didn't know, she wasn't aware completely that of outside of where she was. So if this was another astral dimension or you know, I don't think he clearly identified where he was, but
Mhm.
it really gives a sense more of this like multi-dimensional universe. And that also, it reminds me a bit of when you're lucid dreaming and you're talking to dream characters, because obviously if you know, if once you get into that space, you meet people who are basically background characters and they don't know what's going on. Uh, by the way, you know, if this is your first time watching, don't mess with background characters if you're, you know, in a lucid dream. It's just a little tip that everybody says, and it's true. Don't mess with them. They they get confused and scared and stuff like that, even though it's your own consciousness. But there's also characters in lucid dreams that actually have like their own independent consciousness,
Mm.
and that's what she seemed to be. She seemed to be this like inner independent world, not necessarily aware of where he might be from, or if she was in an astral world, she might not have been aware of that. I couldn't quite figure it out, and it didn't. I don't think it clearly defined what it was.
Mm.
Uh, One question I have for you is, you're talking about like you didn't like, and I think this is still helpful for people because some people do like the technical stuff. Like I like the technical stuff.
Mm.
Why don't you talk about your dislikes? I want to hear about what you disliked about the technical stuff, because even though you didn't like it, I think other people might.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Um, no, I think some people are going to be more into the scientific stuff. Some people more spiritual sided. I think some people appreciate both and are into both. Um, I like some of the scientific stuff to some degree, and then I'll start to lose interest. Yeah, I'm more on the spiritual side. Um, so for me, it's, you know, when I got into spirituality, like when I kind of woke up to the idea of, oh, wait a second, I'm a spiritual being with a physical body. You know, I have a body. I'm not the body. Like that was a big, you know, awakening, so to speak. So, and this was when that happened. This was, you know, before I even had an out of body experience. So once I had an out of body experience, that I think for a lot of people that can be that confirmation moment of, oh my God, I think I survived past death. So for me, that wasn't it. Um, it was just an interesting experience, really. It wasn't it for me. It wasn't a confirmation. It was kind of like I already had that knowing of that. Um, so it wasn't. It's I didn't need that confirmation, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But um, yeah, I don't know. For me, the science of it, it's to me, it's I don't. It's not important for me. It's I kind of have a very strong open mind and acceptance. I think when it comes to the science, I think especially with like learning um, like stages of sleep and learning that type of stuff, I think could be helpful when you get into, say you're trying to work around lucid dreaming or out of body stuff. I think that can be helpful, learning about the sleep cycle and all that. I'm more drawn towards the spiritual and looking at. I think there's a good amount of information scientifically. I mean, obviously lucid dreaming has been validated scientifically, and I don't even think out of body experiences have been validated scientifically, or at least I'm just not aware of it. Um, but yeah, I'm more into the well, let me kind of look clairvoyantly and see what is the mechanism or what's the whole process look energetically. That's kind of what I'm more interested in because I don't know that there's a whole lot of information or awareness about it. So that's what I'm trying to kind of unearth or uncover myself. And then as I kind of get more certainty and unearth it more, I want to be able to share that with people. I mean, maybe people will find that interesting. I don't know. So,
Yeah, I think when people like William Buhlman go into the scientific part of it,
mm,
it's trying to ground it in
sure.
a world that, you know, scientific people relate to. I think also you're trying to like justify it being real,
Yeah.
and you know, some books don't go into that because they just go off into the metaphysical or the occult even. And I think it's cool to have a little bit of both. There was my
Sure.
first astral projection book talked about a specific breathing rhythm, and they said it's very important, but they never got into the scientific part of it. And I really would love to learn more about the connection between the body and breathing patterns and things like that. So
mm,
I do enjoy the scientific stuff, but I could see like he really tried to have a little something. Maybe he wasn't trying, but by default, he had a little something for everybody. So
Yeah, yeah,
you're gonna like some stuff, and maybe you won't like other stuff, no matter who it is. I don't think anybody will like everything.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's good to have the balance. I think balance is important with anything. Um, but yeah, I mean, even I forget when this book was published, but um, even with like Monroe's stuff, maybe I'm sure there's people out there that the thing is when you have these type of experiences and you write a book about it, and then you're on a talk show or you're on a book tour or you're doing some interview with a big group, a big media outlet or whatever it is, you're going to have those questions and that skepticism, like, whether those people actually mean that or they just have to ask those questions because they know other people that are listening are going to have that skeptical viewpoint.
Right.
um, so I think maybe it's when people offer the scientific side, maybe it's because they value that or they're into that or they want to have a balance. And then sometimes, I don't know, I'm just taking a guess off the top of my head, maybe it's also because that they feel the need, they have to prove it or justify it, kind of like you were saying.
Yeah.
um and I guess for me it's I don't, with anything that I teach or just it's like, to me, spirit is real. So I don't find any need to say, to try to prove it or justify it. It's, this resonates with you, or maybe it doesn't, or maybe it's not time for you. And I kind of just leave it as that.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate the balance though, because there's um, some interesting connections he made throughout the end of that book. And then one thing I found helpful was if you remember, there's a couple diagrams. So there's one of them. So remember, a lot of out of body explorers would talk about, it's kind of this inward journey or experience when you project, and part of it made sense to me and part of it didn't. And then there was this diagram, and I saw the diagram, and it clicked. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense to me. Because as of now, when I kind of think or look at astral projection from my perspective, and you might have a different take on this, and that's, I'd be interested in seeing what you think, that when you start to separate out of the body, um, it becomes more of an inward journey towards source. That it's kind of not going further outward. I think you could go outward, maybe to, like, if you remember what Erin was talking about, going to the edge of the universe.
Right. Yeah.
But which I would love to have her back on to be able to maybe do like a guided meditation on that. That'd be awesome. Um, but I think mostly when you start going to like inner dimensions, it's an inward journey towards that source. And they had that diagram where it was kind of like these different realms or layers, so to speak, and then like source was at the center. And I think it was just a basic diagram, because if you listen to a lot of his um, interviews, I think he always mentions, in regards to astral realms, that some people might say there's 7 or 12 and, or hundreds, and he's basically just saying it just seems like there's an infinite amount. So I think it was just a basic diagram, but it seemed like there was this kind of inward journey once you start leaving the body. But yeah, I wanted to see what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. I find it. I don't know if I was going to say confusing, because there's sort of the two different models or theories that people talk about,
Yeah.
where astral projection being actually leaving the body and going somewhere else, and then the other one of like expanding your awareness or expanding yourself, and you're not actually going anywhere necessarily, but yeah, like you're going inward, or it's sort of this, it's sort of a part of your uh, your astral body that you're exploring or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
uh, the only and this, I don't know if this is off topic, but it's just the way that I sort of understand the difference between the two, and where my belief is because I've had an experience in 2009 with Nancy Trivolato,
Mm-hmm.
learning at the International Academy of Consciousness, the IAC, and we did actually a clairvoyant exercise while Nancy was projecting, and you could actually see her energy leaving her body. So
Mm,
to me, it was like a check mark, like, oh, that answers that question.
mm,
Because I know also what I felt. I felt like you're leaving the body, like I can remove, move my fingers out of my body, or like I've actually pulled myself away from my body and touched the floor.
mm-hmm,
But it's hard to trust your own feelings because you as a witness can be your brain. Uh, there's all sorts of studies, to show that your brain is not a reliable source necessarily for experience, because we make up our own experiences in a lot of ways. But if multiple people are having sort of an objective experience in real time, that
mm,
answers a little more questions. So to watch Nancy actually separate from her body in real time while awake, just looking with, a soft focus
mm-hmm.
clairvoyantly, and having multiple other people in the room see that same thing, that answered the question for me. Now, is that definitive? No, I don't think it's definitive, but at least it gives uh, a little more clarity to the idea of like, do we separate from our bodies? Yes, but that doesn't answer all the questions. There could be other dimensions that we go to, or dimensions that are just very close to us, like paper thin, like that membrane. I don't know. So there's still more questions to be answered. But
Oh yeah. Yeah. Um, I remember doing a reading on one guy, um, and I remember he was having this kind of breakthrough. Uh, if I can recall, it was such a long time ago. I think he was having like a breakthrough within himself, and one way that it helped him was that when he would go out of body, he could reach a new plane of existence. I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. That if he clears through some sort of internal blockage, that would start to allow him to have more permission. Maybe is a good way to say it. To go to a more inner dimension, or a finer, or maybe a higher frequency. Um, I remember even looking back then that to me it seemed that majority of the people um, are have more access to say the lower realms. Um, and then what I was finding is that yeah, in like that particular situation, when that person cleared that internal blockage, they could start to kind of move on to another inner dimension and kind of start exploring there. Um, but yeah, I also find that the like your traditional 7 layers of the aura, each layer, it seems, I don't know, I think and this is just me, just off the top of my head. This is not something that I've really heavily looked into clairvoyantly myself, but this is just me talking. That these layers seem to correspond with maybe different levels of astral realms. That's something that I've been thinking about. Um, but yeah, and I think maybe even Robert Monroe. That's another. We probably need a book review on that. I think there was like some next level. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's in his second book. I have to see. Where he eventually kind of explores another dimension, and he had this like pondering of that. Oh, maybe this is where people's emotions are, or just um, and so just it got me thinking of like, oh, okay, I have this pretty good idea that maybe that these different layers of the aura, some of those are related or connected to different dimensions of reality. Um, uh, I don't know, what do
yeah,
you think?
that I can definitely relate to as well.
Yeah.
In that the one of my favorite books that I've been reading recently, by Dora Van Koons, or Dora Van Gilder Koons.
Mm,
Uh, she was a clairvoyant. She's not, she passed away, but she could see the entire aura, every layer, the etheric, the astral, and the mental.
mm,
She could see all the chakras, but and focus in and out of those layers. And she has a book where she actually has detailed drawings of the astral body from multiple people. She also, because of her clairvoyance, because of her amazing, like this is beyond, I think, Edgar Casey even
Mhm.
level of awareness and clairvoyance. Because of her high level of clairvoyance, she was able to even see fairies and that whole fairy realm. She wrote a book about that too. And I think that's kind of, I could understand that being like, you know, the idea of flatlanders, like if you have a two-dimensional space and a drawing of a person on that two-dimensional space, if I'm a 3D person, I can see all of that 2D area, but the person on the 2D plane, and if you're watching this or listening to this and you don't get it, just Google it and you'll kind of like flatlanders. There's a better explanation than I'm explaining it, but it basically is like if you're the dimension above, you can see the lower dimensions below you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
you're in the third dimension, you can see the second dimension. We can see the piece of paper, but if you're on the piece of paper, you can't see what's going around. You certainly can't see in 3D. Dora Van Koons could see in 4 dimensions because, or she could see through objects. So she was seeing like 3-dimensional objects. We can't see 3 dimensions because we can't see through things. We can only see basically 2 flat dimensions. If we could see 3 dimensions, we could see through objects and, you know, in space. Uh, so I think the higher you go, the more you can experience and the more you can see. So if you were like a 5th dimensional person or 5th dimensional being, you could be sitting right next to you or I, like a spirit guide, you know, or something higher than us, and we just can't see it normally. But that could answer those questions about why spirit guides can be around us and near us. They're just in a higher dimension. Maybe we could see them once in a while and through clairvoyance, through dreams, and through astral projection, but that's just when we are elevating ourselves to a higher vibration, like when we, you know, you elevate yourself during astral projection.
Yeah. Yeah, so I always thought that, I think I always had this picture in my mind that when you go to higher dimensions, you're going higher, like upward.
Yeah,
And so this was kind of like, it kind of, something clicked, and it was kind of, oh, going inward, and the inward being higher or finer vibrations, higher frequencies. And um but yeah, I think it's I think the I think depending on what realm maybe people are in, I think would determine the type of beings they might come across. Um, and that's something that I've explored a little. To me, it seems that would closer to source. I think that would be more angelic type beings. Um, and then I think the kind of, as you descend down, I think at some point, like you mentioned, that Dora would see fairy beings.
right.
I, to me, I always see like magical beings kind of more at like a mid to slightly lower vibration, and then there's like different type of beings that be on the lower vibrations. Um, but yeah, I find this fascinating. Like this is like, I feel like there's, you can really never get bored with, you know, exploring this. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
this is what keeps me up at night, is being able to learn more and explore more and experience more.
I think I got one more experience,
Yeah.
and again, I think these are like pieces. I don't have the complete picture, and I don't think that many people do have the
Yeah.
entirety of the complete picture. But like Robert Monroe talks about journeying inward, and he has a lot of experiences talking about going towards the inward source.
Yeah.
William Buhlman talks about that a little bit too.
Mhm.
Uh, but I have had multiple experiences where seeing like that little seed of light that all of us have, that all living beings have inside of them, and that sort of answers some questions. I see things as connected and connections. That would be like looking at the seed of the universe. You know, if you look at a cosmic picture of the Big Bang,
Mhm.
going back to the beginning, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter
Yeah.
as the galaxies get closer and closer together. And as you look at the light spreading apart further and further away, it gets darker and darker and darker.
Yeah.
So to me, that would sort of make sense. And Dora, in her pictures, she's got pictures of babies. Actually, she has pictures of a pregnant woman
Mm.
and the pregnant woman's aura, pictures of newborn babies and pictures of little children. They don't have these dark spots inside of them.
Mm.
But when you get older, you have
Yeah.
a literal patch of darkness around your feet, like a solid patch of dark, accumulated dark energy of all your negativity and the stuff you're worrying about and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, it's hard to frame a large picture of this, to piece it all together. But I
Yeah.
think there is connections about exactly what you're saying, journeying inside and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned Louis Monero. I was watching an interview with him, a different interview, um, and he was talking about again. And I think when he talked to us, I don't know if he mentioned it during the interview or maybe just prior or after, maybe. But he said something along the lines of enjoying talking to people like us, it was just a casual, just kind of we're open minded. It's not coming from a skeptical perspective, so to speak. Where I think a lot
Right.
of you get not all of them, but you'll get some of the big ones that will on YouTube or whoever it is in the media that will come from that you know pessimistic or just skeptical. And it's not even to say that all skeptical perspectives is bad, but just I think he was just so used to that. So this is kind of a breath of fresh air. But he was talking about an interview, or in the interview, he was talking about an experiment that I guess when he was the CEO or the president or of that organization, um, where he had people in a main room performing out of body experiences, and then he'd have them go into basically go into a different room, which was physically locked and being guarded by a neutral party, not associated with his organization. And I think they had maybe a computer or a screen or something where it was displaying different images. So these people would project out of their body, go into that room, see if they saw an image, go back to their body, report it, and then he collected all the data, and they were finding that people were, um, you know, there was they were finding that some of these images they were talking about were the images that were being displayed on that screen. Um, so I found that one pretty interesting. Um, but I don't know. Have you heard about that before?
I don't remember hearing that one, but
Okay.
on that same note about scientific experiments,
Yeah.
uh, Wagner Allegretti, people can Google that. There's a TED talk where he's doing an MRI machine, and he's projecting. He does two projections. One is in his head. He's projecting energy, doing the velo technique, and then energy is projecting outside of his head. And then another one, he projects energy in his hands, doing same sort of energy technique. And it shows, scientific evidence that doing these energy movements is able to produce a observable, through MRI machine, an
Hmm.
observable effect. Again, it doesn't conclusively prove everything, but at least it shows. I think people want to be taken seriously. William Buhlman, we're talking about his book,
Hmm.
and things like magic and things like occultism are not taken seriously.
Right.
So you have to kind of go through the back door of science to be taken seriously. And so people should be applauded. Obviously, William Buhlman and anybody who's trying to do that should be applauded for that, because if you can be more scientific about it and be taken seriously, then there's more funding. It can help the wider world.
Right.
I mean, it's fun to be special and have special abilities, but that's not really helping the world. It only helps the world if everybody is at least in some way touched and involved with this kind of phenomena.
Yeah. No, you make a really good point. I think that's the big. I think that would be the main reason um, for the scientific is that because lucid dreaming, um, is already scientifically proven. And then same thing, if we got out of body exploration more scientifically proven, I think then, I still think it would take time to get the masses more involved or, intrigued or accepting or aware of it. But yeah, I think that's a huge step in that you get more people, you know, aware and understanding of this and accepting of it. That's because
Actually, sorry to butt in, but do you
yeah.
remember him talking about the VR, virtual reality? Like that could be the forefront of getting the world involved with it. If virtual reality could help you simulate a projection.
Mm, I don't remember that. Yeah, you can just kind of refresh my mind there.
I could be confusing it with another book I was reading just recently,
Okay.
but even if I am, I'm sure William Buhlman would be in favor of that. I know he would be because that's a scientific, and it gets into a wider audience anyway.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he talks about that in interviews where he's just like, just having more people, if people were aware of that, they could survive death. Most people I'm going to assume that they'd probably fear death, or they identify as a physical body's going to perish, then, oh gosh, there's this mass unknown and great fear of the unknown. But if you have an out of body experience, he's just like, a lot of people wouldn't be caught up in the things that they might be caught up right now in the world. There'd be probably more peace, or there'd be, maybe no wars, or just, people would probably be a different world. And that's an interesting thing to think about. What if, to me, I always think about something like that, where like, what if everybody, at least that would be awake on the planet. What if everyone just stopped and like meditated for 5 minutes? What would that even look like? That'd be pretty incredible. But let alone if everyone in maybe just 1 year's time all got to have an out of body experience, just one, even if it was a short amount of time, just being able to just separate out, they can look back, they can see their physical body. How would that, you know, change their perspective, or, just their own life, but yet alone humanity as a whole? And that's interesting to think about. Like, what would that do?
right, I think that religion as by itself would be changed because it's not necessarily that religion or belief is a bad thing, but if you're coming at it from a point of fear and people using religion as like an insurance policy, like, yeah, what if it's real?
uh,
But if you actually see it and you kind of get like a little bit of proof that like, well, this can be real, like in a real sense, you get a stronger belief. Like uh, a lot of the people that we know, even though we project and we have a lot of mystical beliefs and clairvoyance and things like that, I have a much stronger belief in God and a much stronger belief in uh, religious beliefs. I just don't come at it from fear. I come at it from a point of understanding.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some guys. Have you heard Tom Campbell? He's another out of body explorer, um, but he talks about the difference between belief and knowing, like kind of like instead of believing in something, knowing something, having that knowingness, and that part of that coming from these out of body experiences of being able to break through and have different experiences, and just having this new awareness, this knowingness of, oh, okay, this is what's here. Um, yeah, even William Buhlman, he'll talk about religion, because I think he was an atheist, and
Yes. Yep.
so that's the interesting thing is he started off with just kind of the like, this ain't real, or that's not possible, and then I think his friend had an experience, and then that led him to trying the target technique out, that visual technique, for maybe just under a month, and then having that first experience. But he talks about religion, and that he thinks that a lot of those experiences in the Bible, or just even just different religious texts, that they're probably out of body experiences. He kind of talks about that in some um, interviews I've seen. But um, yeah, that's is that what you're we're referring to? Are you using the target technique now, or something, a variation of it, or something different?
It's I don't remember exactly how he explained the target technique, but we'll just call it like enhanced visualization. It's a little bit of what we worked with you with grounding, but
Mm,
I'm slowly allowing myself to go to sleep and allowing the dream images to come in. I'm like oversimplifying it because at this point I'm getting to a place where it's hard to explain what's going on. You know what I mean?
mm,
I'm experiencing things more through feeling rather than technique,
mm,
and so I'm slowing down the process of falling asleep. And when I wake up, it's hours of me waking up rather than just like an alarm clock. I'll be half awake and be in and out of a dream state for an hour or two.
mm.
So I'm really like uh, the picture is like becoming more focused. We'll say it like that, you know, where before it was far away or maybe I couldn't even see it. Now that I'm focusing the picture slowly into view
Mm.
and making that work for me.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah. You think it's maybe a good place to wrap up this? Is there anything else you want to mention about his book? I mean, I highly recommend it. If you haven't read it, definitely check it out. But
Yeah, top five. It's got to be. I've read a bunch of different astral projection books, and
yeah,
that one and Astro Dynamics are the two that I would say have to be in your library. Um, I have it as an audiobook,
mm.
the Adventures Out of the Body. So I think maybe we should do a takeaway or something like that. You know, just to kind of keep that the similarity between all of our episodes and the
Oh,
way we
tip.
end it. Yeah,
Yeah.
little tip or a takeaway or something.
Yeah. Um. Okay. I like that. So kind of where I'm at is I'm working on trying to. I'm practicing consciously falling asleep, and um, I think this is. I mean, I'm finding it challenging. And maybe it comes easier to other people. Maybe they would experience similar challenges. I think we're so maybe used to like some people just lie down and they just get knocked out. They just fall asleep right away. Some people it takes longer. Um, and this is something I'm working on. It's just you kind of mentioned um, kind of that like half awake, half asleep for like an hour and in and out of dreams and whatnot. And um, so I feel like I'm still at the tip of the iceberg of just recognizing, having like flashes of light or just times where I catch myself just about to fall asleep and then keep myself awake. But there's been plenty of times where I've went or I just went unconscious and then I'd snap out and be like, oh no, I just missed 20 minutes. I need to go back to where I was and restart pick up where I left off in my meditation. Um, so, if you're interested in something like that, this is what I'm really involved in or interested in at this point. Um, it is not just, lying down and just, um, just clonking out, so to speak, but just allow yourself to kind of just um, just observe as you let your body relax and go to sleep and just see what happens. And just, even if you do it for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, see what you notice, what you get. I'm finding this incredibly fascinating, the sensations, visuals, and just using your intent and just being kind of an observer as your body starts to fall asleep. But that would be my tip, to just kind of maybe just play with or explore. Just maybe that sparks some interest with some people. But Damon, what do you got?
I think I would double down on exactly that same thing.
Okay.
Um, but for my own way of saying it,
Mhm.
uh, it's definitely like the William Buhlman like visualization thing. He talks about trying to look at a room in every specific detail.
Yeah.
I've done that before, and I found that very daunting.
Mm.
So uh, it's fine to use visualization, but you can still do it your own way. So that's perfectly fine if you think that you can pay attention to one specific room and touch every object and look at every object and form it that way. But for me, I do it in a little more of a passive way this is how I became successful with meditation. The only way I became successful with meditation is that instead of trying to clear my mind or get rid of things, I just let it go and let the thoughts just kind of wander in my mind without getting upset about them. I don't engage
Hmm.
with the thoughts in my mind. So that the same thing is true when I'm doing the visualization is I don't get caught up. So if I was doing a technique, I'm all like caught up with the technique. I have to do this, I have to breathe this way, I have to do this thing. I'm a little more disengaged. uh, my visualization can be in and out. If I'm paying attention not enough, I'll fall right asleep. If I'm paying attention too closely, I'm getting too uptight. So I
Yeah.
play around with both. I'll I'll visually in my mind check out what's going on with my energy. My eyes are closed and I'm moving my awareness with my energy, seeing if I'm tense. Okay, and then I'll let it go. I don't get caught up with it. If I have things that I'm thinking about my day and my mind keeps chattering, I'll listen. Imagine if you have a friend that's really uptight and just wants you to listen to them.
Hmm.
If you're not paying attention to that friend, they're going to get pissed off at you. But if you listen to them just for a few minutes, they'll calm down. That's your mind. Your mind is your friend. Just listen to the okay, I'll listen to you, but don't engage.
Hmm.
Don't engage with the worries. Don't engage with all the clutter of the day. Just listen and calm down, and then disengage. Just kind of in and out. Have fun. You see dream images, check them out, and then disengage. Just have fun with it, and don't let astral projection be like the homework. Like this thing that kind of sucks. Like going to the gym sucks. Do it because you enjoy it, like playing a game.
Right.
you
Right.
know, Playing basketball or baseball, whatever you like, that's fun. That's not exercise, that's fun.
Yeah. So it sounds like your non-attachment is what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not attachment and just having, just enjoying it, not making, like I used to do where I'm going to lay down, I'm going to do my astral projection exercise and I'm going to it became like homework.
Hmm.
Homework sucks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Trying to find the fun in it. I think that's huge.
Yep.
Um, yeah. That's great. Um, well, listen, everybody. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll probably do more book reviews. This is just the first one we've done. Again,
Yeah.
Adventures.
Comment, just sorry to interrupt, but comment down below if you have a book you want us to review. Maybe we're not thinking of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, the Adventures Beyond the Body, William Buhlman. Um, again, if you are not subscribed to us, please go ahead and just subscribe on YouTube. Feel free to follow us on the different platforms. We're on iTunes, Spotify, whatever else your platform you might use. But again, my name's Andrew Fritz,
I'm Damon Lewis.
and we'll see you next time, guys.
All right. Bye.